Welcome to UNCAGED. Today we're speaking with Albert Rees. Albert is the Executive Vice President of Enterprise Strategy and Transformation at Capgemini Invent in North America. It sounds amazing. Capgemini Invent. He's certainly heavily involved in strategy, transformation, consulting, and we'll go through in more detail what Capgemini Invent and Albert and his teams are working on. But before we get there, Albert, tell us a little bit about you and your career.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Using consulting lingo here and from an agile perspective, I think about my career starting in a discovery phase, which I think many of us do first coming out of college. But we're really working in industry for several years in companies like BASF and McKee Foods, and then doing a little bit of experimentation in self-employment. And through self-employment, I really discovered my passion for understanding business challenges that organizations face and how we can go about helping them overcome them. During my self-employment days, I came across Accenture. Actually, at that point, it was still Andersen Consulting. And really, at that point, it started to make a lot of sense for me to do something different and really move into a consulting type organization, really hone my skills in consulting. So I spent about 9 years at Accenture. I left there as a partner. Needed to get off the road like many people at Accenture do after a period of time, and I joined North Highland, sort of a smaller consulting, but very much focused on local markets and local clients. And it was a very different shift and focus around client and customer and even an employee's engagement and how you do work, how you consult, and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So I spent 11 years at North Highland, and I left there as the president of the North and UK region. Was the largest and fastest growing region North Highland had at the time. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great opportunity for me, a great career for me there. Spent the next year doing a little bit of time experimenting. When you have a role like that, trying to figure out, okay, what's next takes a bit of time. So it took me about a year to think about where I wanted to go next. And I had the great fortune and opportunity to meet Arkady Dobkin, the CEO of EPAM. And Arkady was looking to get it really more engaged, to have conversations outside of the engineering space where they really spend most of their energy talking to customers other than the CIO and the chief digital officer, really take the CXO agenda forward and really start driving engineering services through different types of buyers. So I spent 5 years there, but over the course of the first 4 years there, we built a consulting team, started with me as one and built it to about 270, which now leads me to my role at Capgemini.
That's amazing. And I mean, Capgemini is a firm that I've worked with many, many times. So I really like Capgemini and the work that the teams always do there. Capgemini Invent is new to me. So tell me a little bit about what your group is doing and what's the latest.
Yeah, the group is the consulting organization essentially for Capgemini. Capgemini has many, many pieces, as you know, if you're exposed to them, Ben, as you said. And it is the consulting organization. So if we think about, where we want to operate and the value we can bring back both to our clients and to Capgemini, it's that strategic piece. It is really understanding what clients' organizations need and how they would interact with the rest of the Capgemini organization and laying that groundwork and the framework to really drive these downstream conversations with many of the technology organizations, the outsourcing organizations, the application support organizations, and anything else that Capgemini would do downstream from there. So that's the overarching intent of Invent, and there's a lot of components of it we can get into if you want, but it is a fairly complex and global organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me a little bit. I mean, certainly we are living in a moment where I would say companies are thinking about their present and future. They're making a lot of shifts and changes. What's top of the list for some of your customers, and what are they coming to you with?
Yeah, our customers and I can't say we're a whole lot different. You think about what we've all gone through since 2019, and it's just a mere 4 years ago. we started with this. Everybody's talking about the global cool down. You can remember 2019, and then we started to feel a little bit of that, kind of Q3 2019, and we started to see a little more reluctance in spend. That digital excitement that we had leading up to 2019 was starting to cool off a bit. People were asking for business cases as opposed to, well, just go build something for me. And then COVID happened, and again, all bets were off. There was, a brief pause. There was, massive confusion and concern, with everybody, honestly, globally, as to what do we do, how do we interact with our customers, all sorts of things, and we saw that stall out for several months, at least a quarter, and probably a quarter and a half, as organizations started to really understand the impact and what to do next. And we came out of it. We saw, in fact, we saw massive demand for digitization and technology. Once organizations started buying again, we couldn't hire quickly enough. We saw massive wage inflation, massive inflation of everything for all practical purposes. And then it started to slow down again. And so, we're now into that next turn, where we're coming out of COVID, and we've got a lot of dollars that have been spent, investments that have been made by our clients. And now the question is, with inflation kicking up, and again, we're seeing the global cool down or discussion of global cool down. We've got the conflict in Ukraine, all these things driving uncertainty yet again. It's just an interesting time, and trying to keep up with customers and what customers need. I think one of the things we're starting to see, with COVID, we saw a massive push towards digitization, market share growth. How do I interact with my customers differently than I did last year? Because my customers can't come to me the way they had in the past. And with that, there was a ton of investment again in digital and technology. And now we're seeing a little bit of a pullback, similar to what we saw almost going back to the year 2000 with the implementation of the Y2K compliance software. 2001 came around and said, well, that's great. I spent an awful lot of money on this thing, and all I did is, run paychecks on January 1st. What else can I do? How do I really extract the value out of that investment? And I think we're starting to see that now as well. We've made the investment, through the COVID time. How do I start to realize that investment and extract more value out of the investments made? So there's a bit of a pivot here that we're seeing, and our clients are, looking for help in addressing that pivot. The other things that are coming into play, and we can probably talk about that in a little more depth as we go on. But just looking at sustainability and what sustainability is driving into the business, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear more about that, Albert, because it's really interesting. There have been these threads that really predated, I'd say, the pandemic, but certainly I think in some ways probably paused in certain areas during the pandemic, but also accelerated during the pandemic in other areas. And the sustainability discussion is an interesting one. So tell me, where are you guys on that?
Yeah, I think your observation is spot on. When you're sitting here worried about, the longevity of my organization and whether or not I'll make it through a pandemic, sustainability became back burner type conversation. And so you're absolutely right. We did see that. But what's interesting to me now, and I think the other things that we're seeing happen, generative AI, Chat GPT, what's happening with artificial intelligence generally, we had, I think, a lot of buckets of things that were going on, driving a lot of interest and really, a lot of the conversations we had, at least in the United States, around sustainability, even 2 years ago, was just really understanding what does it mean to my organization? How do I track it? How do I get on track for a net zero type business, et cetera? And now all these things are starting to converge, and you start to see how does technology and even artificial intelligence help and drive sustainability, because it can do that, and we're starting to see applications of that. So the sustainability is not going away. I mean, it can't. I mean, you just turn on anything right now and see what's going on with record-setting temperatures in the United States, the hottest June we've ever seen. Yeah. People are even the scientists are scratching their heads. The articles about scratching their heads, not knowing what it means or how to react to it, et cetera. So it's not going away.
Yeah, I was reading this morning about 90-degree surface temperature off the coast of Florida. And, it's just unbelievable. So, I guess we'll be boiling ourselves soon.
Well, we can already predict the storm buildup we're going to see in the Atlantic here in another month or so. It's going to happen, and everybody knows it's going to happen. But it
Well,
is interesting. Go
I
ahead.
mean, Albert, it's really an interesting space. And I think that one thing I often find with folks that gravitate towards consulting is that you are all problem solvers. You like really complicated problems and you like to
We
figure them out.
we find that better than creating problems, actually, Ben.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But tell me a little bit, Albert, what is it that got you into the space and what do you love about what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I went to, I graduated out of an MBA program, and I'm still convinced that MBA is consulting training 101. It's really and I think it's even true today, many years after I graduated out of that sort of a program. But to your point, there's a number of passions you have as a consultant. There's the passion around solving problems. You're curious by nature. And we ask a lot of questions, and I think oftentimes it comes off as, well, I'm challenging you. Well, I'm not challenging. I'm just curious by nature, as a matter of fact. And it's not to say you're doing something wrong, but just to truly understand the situation. I'm comfortable in ambiguous environments, but I do seek to resolve that ambiguity because that's what our clients, are trying to work out themselves in most cases. So I think it's a passion for many of those things. In figuring out, I think when I referred to my time at BASF and McKee Foods, even in those environments, I was really moving into roles were more consultative in nature, trying to solve problems, overcoming things that have created obstacles for the business when they existed in those two businesses. I think what was, the nice thing with Accenture, really learned how to sharpen that saw and
Yeah.
get very clear on methodology and how to act. And I will say, it's somewhat robotic in nature, and it was really North Highland that allowed me to understand, okay, how do we do this in a more human type fashion and really show appreciation and regard for both our customers as well as our employees. And that was a super helpful learning for me and a growth period for me. But consulting's, I think it's in your blood or it's not in your blood. And if you're a
Yeah.
consultant, doing anything other than is pretty darn hard.
Now, it's a funny one. I do notice that. And I think as someone who gravitates towards challenges and trying to figure them out, I certainly understand why it's super interesting. And we find ourselves really in another wonderful moment, Albert, here in 2023, as we see kind of economic shifts and changes and loads of other challenges appearing on the horizon. What does the outlook look like for you guys this year? What are you working on, and what does next year look like for you?
Yeah, and I think we're probably consistent with most everybody in our sector, and then certainly we're moving at the pace of our clients as we always do in the consulting industry, or even services industries in general. As I referred to earlier, we're seeing hesitation. We're seeing I think our clients taking a little longer to make decisions. I wouldn't say it's not happening. I think we saw some not happening going on between, I would say, mid-November last year and probably well into Q1. Again, our clients taking that pause to say, okay, cooling is happening. Interest rates are rising. What does this mean to us? How do we react to it? What do we spend on? What do we not spend on? And so as they're making those decisions, we're all sitting back waiting. And really, we can help clients in a downward turn. We can help clients in an upward turn. It's kind of hard to help clients when things are stagnating, and we saw quite a bit of that at the end of Q4 and the starts of Q1 this year. So it's slow moving. We are growing,
Yep.
which is exciting. The challenges, I think, again, they're really getting their arms wrapped around where to make investments. I think
Yeah.
AI is again causing a bit of a pause right now. Generative AI, what does it mean to our businesses? How do we use it in an ethical way within our businesses and not do things? You start to think about what AI can do from a data privacy perspective and some of the risks. So there's a lot of caution. It's there, it's happening, and so how do we now use it and not violate any kind of guidelines, rules, regulations we have in our markets and in the spaces we operate, et cetera. So again, I think a lot of slowdown right now. It's not moving at all, but there are certainly headwinds that I think a lot of us are facing.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I hear you. And I think it's an interesting one because these topics, perhaps it's good that they're pausing a little bit to think these through. They're really I would say, foundational issues. I mean, these are
Absolutely.
huge issues. On the AI one, I think for a long time, and I would say the majority of companies to date are still kind of giving it lip service. They'll be doing it on a project basis or in a specific functionary, but I'm not sure they've totally grappled on the operational restructuring that's going to occur and the fundamental change in roles. I've only heard that from a handful of companies.
Well, no, you're right, and I mean AI, even it still has this challenge. I mean, we're the sources of data, and how accurate are the sources of data that AI is using to make decisions, right? So
Mhm.
if, let's say, 50% of the spaces it goes to get information insight, the internet, for example. If I go get the internet, half the information on the internet is wrong. And
Yeah.
so if AI is using that to make conclusions, now you've even got more wrong being built across a basis of wrong. And
Yeah.
so I think the use cases have to be, very clearly examined, and what to do with it. But I don't think anyone's going to argue right now that it's going to have a major impact
Yeah,
on what we do and
absolutely.
how we operate over the next 18 to 24 months. There's just no doubt
Absolutely.
about it.
Albert, it's been great speaking with you. If someone wanted to learn more about what you and the Capgemini Invent team are up to, where's the best place to reach you?
Well, certainly there, Capgemini has a website, capgemini.com. You can go in there and see really the breadth of things that Capgemini does holistically. There's links in there to the Invent side of our business. It will take you to global Invent type services. You can drill in there into North America. So I think there's plenty of ways to access us and what we do. We do have perspectives and insight into sustainability. I think we've got very active sustainability practices both in Europe as well as North America, where
Mhm.
we're really starting to grow. Same thing is true on generative AI and artificial intelligence. We're really starting to move now into what does it mean sector by sector, and what are the common use cases we're seeing for artificial intelligence in each of the sectors. So much work is being done. We do have points of view and perspectives. We know these are challenges that a lot of organizations are grappling with, and we do have ways of helping through these kind of decisions. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to reach out. Yeah.
The nature of the consulting atmosphere environment today, the questions that customers are asking, probably no surprise that AI is on the mind as people try to figure that out. And I would say the strength of the sustainability movement is really shifting the way enterprises are thinking about things. And Capgemini Invent is guiding them through those issues and challenges. Albert, thank you so much again, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.